Hello, dear children. Once again, a very warm welcome in your English class with your learning buddy. Here I am with your English textbook, Language Odyssey, Class 8 by Knowledge Series, Amit Publishing House. And children, today we are going to start a new chapter. So, are you ready with me? So, here we start chapter number 8. And the chapter is The Homecoming. So, what's there in this chapter? Let's read it and then only we'll come to know about the chapter. About the story. So, as we always read something before starting the story, before starting any chapter, we read about that chapter. So, let's read it. The lesson tells us about a boy who missed his home so much that he nearly was bedridden and close to death. He was so close to his mother, but due to his constant misbehavior, his mother sent him away and therefore he fell ill. So, ये स्टोरी जो है वो एक ऐसे बच्चे की है, ऐसे लड़के की है जो कि अपने घर को बहुत मिस कर रहा था। और वो अपने घर से दूर क्यों था? क्योंकि वो बहुत मिसबिहेव करता था घर में, किसी की बात नहीं मानता था, तो उसकी मदर ने उसको घर से दूर भेज दिया था। और घर से दूर भेज देने की वजह से वो बच्चा अपने घर को मिस करने लगा, सब लोगों को मिस कर रहा था, इतना मिस कर रहा था कि वो बीमार पड़ गया and he was close to his death also. So let's read this. I'm very curious to know about this. Are you all too? I hope you all are very curious to know about this boy. So here we start the chapter, children. Fatik Chakravarti was the ringleader among the boys of the village. फतीक चक्रवर्ती की कहानी है ये। उस बच्चे का नाम था फतीक एंड वो रिंग लीडर कौन होता है? जो बॉस होता है, जो हेड करता है टीम को। ओके, दैट इज द रिंग लीडर। और ये अपने बॉयज के जो झुंड था, वो विलेज में जितने भी बॉयज थे उनका लीडर। A new idea for mischief got into his head. There was a heavy log lying on the muddy bank of the river. He decided that they should all work together to shift the log from its place. Now, as he was very mischievous, बहुत शैतानियां करता था वो, तो उसके दिमाग में एक नया आइडिया है। एक बहुत मोटा लकड़ी का लॉग किसे कहते हैं, जो लकड़ी का पीस होता है, इट्स वेरी थिक एंड दैट वाज लाइंग ऑन द मडी बैंक। और रिवर का जो मडी बैंक था वहां पे पड़ा हुआ था। अब उसके दिमाग में आया कि सब मिलके इस लॉग को वहां से हटा दें। The owner of the log would be angry and they would all enjoy the fun. अब जो ओनर होगा, जिसका भी वो लॉग होगा, वो बहुत गुस्से में आएगा, क्योंकि वहां से अगर हट जाएगा, वो लॉग वहां से हटा देंगे, तो जो ओनर है, उसका मालिक जो है, उसे बहुत गुस्सा आएगा और हमें बहुत मजा आएगा। But just as the fun was about to begin, Makhan, Fatik's young brother, sauntered up and sat down on the log. Sauntered means walk in a slow and relaxed manner. लेकिन जैसे ही क्या हुआ, ये आइडिया उसके दिमाग में आया और वो इस लॉग को हटाने ही वाले थे, तभी फटीक का जो छोटा भाई है माखन, वो धीरे से गया और उस लॉग के ऊपर बैठ गया। He appeared like a young philosopher meditating on the futility of games. ऐसा लग रहा था जैसे कोई यंग फिलोसोफर वहां बैठा हुआ है और इन यूजलेस गेम्स के बारे में सोच रहा। Fatik was furious. Makhan, he cried, if you don't get down this minute, I'll thrash you. अब फतीक को बहुत गुस्सा आया, उसने जोर से चिल्लाया, उसने बोला, माखन, अगर तुम अभी के अभी नहीं उतरे यहाँ से, तो मैं तुम्हें I'll thrash you, I'll beat you. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position. Now, If Fatik was to keep his regal dignity before the public, it was clear he ought to carry out his threat. अब फटीक की आवाज सुन के माखन और रिलैक्स और आराम से बैठ गया। अब फटीक की डिग्निटी की बात थी कि उसने कहा था कि अगर तुम नहीं हटे और अगर माखन नहीं हटता वहां तो उसकी बात खराब होगी, तो अब तो उसे कुछ करना ही था। He gave the command to roll the log and Makhan over together. Makhan heard the order and made it a point of honor to stick on. अब फटीक ने क्या सोचा? फटीक ने कमांड दिया सबको कि ये जो लॉग है इसको रोल करना शुरू करो माखन के साथ। माखन बैठा रहे इस पे, उसी के साथ इसको रोल करना शुरू, और माखन भी उसके साथ चिपका रहा, बैठा रहा वहीं पे, क्योंकि उसके ऑनर की बात थी। The boys began to heave at the log with all their might. अब सब बॉयज मिलकर उस लॉग को रोल कर, calling out 1, 2, 3 go. At the word go, the log went, and with it went Makhan's philosophy, glory and all. And now what happened? जैसे ही इन सब बच्चों ने 1, 2, 3 go बोला और उसको धक्का दिया उस लॉग को, तो वो लॉग जो है रोल होना शुरू हुआ माखन के साथ, और माखन की फिलॉसफी, ग्लोरी जितनी भी थी सब वही रही। माखन rose and rushed at Fatik and scratched his face and beat him and kicked him, and then went home crying. The first act of the drama was over. Now, what happened? जैसे ही ये किया सब बच्चों ने, तो माखन एकदम से खड़ा हुआ और दौड़ के फटीक के पास गया और उसके गाल पे स्क्रैच किया और उसको मारा, उसको किक किया, और उसके बाद रोता हुआ घर चला गया। माखन खुद रोता हुआ घर चला गया। Now, Fatik wiped his face and sat down on the edge of a sunken barge on the river bank and began to chew a blade of grass. अब फटीक ने अपना मुंह साफ किया और वहाँ edge of एक ट्रंक पे, रिवर बैंक पे बैठ गया, और एक ब्लेड जैसे होता है ना, जब आप बहुत एंगर, गुस्से में होते हैं या कुछ होता है तो आपको च्यू करते हैं, तो उसने वहाँ से एक घास उठाया और उसको च्यू कर दिया। A boat came up to the landing and a middle-aged man stepped on shore. वहाँ कभी एक बोट आई और उसमें से एक middle-aged man बाहर निकला। He asked Fatik where the Chakravartis lived. Fatik went on chewing the grass and said, "Go and find out yourself." Because Fatik was in anger, तो वैसे गुस्से में परेशान था। क्यों? क्योंकि माखन उसको मार के गया था और वो घास चबा रहा था, और जैसे ही उस आदमी ने उससे पूछा कि चक्रवर्ती का घर कहाँ है, तो उसने कहा अपने आप जाके ढूंढ लो। Now see what happened. When Fatik came into the house, his mother said angrily, "So you have been hitting Makhan again." अब जैसे ही फटीक घर आया और घर आते ही उसकी मदर ने गुस्से में बोला, तो तुमने आज फिर माखन को मारा? Fatik answered indignantly. He answered indignantly, "No, I haven't. Who told you that?" फटीक ने बोला, नहीं, मैंने तो नहीं किया, मैंने तो नहीं मारा माखन को, किसने बताया? His mother shouted, "Don't lie, you have." "I tell you I haven't. Ask Makhan." फटीक replied. अब उसकी मदर ने फिर शाउट किया, नहीं तुमने मारा है। तो फटीक ने बोला, आप माखन से पूछो, मैंने नहीं मारा उसे। But Makhan said, "Yes, mother, Fatik did hit me." माखन ने तो क्या बोला, क्योंकि वो रोता हुआ घर आया था और बोला, "Yes, mother, उसने मुझे मारा." Fatik could not bear this injustice any longer. He rushed at Makhan and hammered him with blows for telling lies. Now, children, what happened? जब फटीक से रहा नहीं गया, उसको बहुत गुस्सा आया और वो दौड़ के माखन की तरफ गया और उसको हैमर्ड मींस बार-बार घूंसे में उसको मारने लगा। क्योंकि क्यों मारा उसने? कि वो झूठ बोल रहा था, माखन झूठ बोल रहा था। His mother pulled Fatik away, beating him with her hands and shouting at him. अब उसकी मदर ने, फटीक की मदर ने उसको खींचा और उसको मारने लगी अपने हाथ से. Now see children, it was at this critical juncture that the grey-haired stranger arrived. और उसी time, juncture means at that time, a grey-haired stranger, वो जो वहां पे बैंक पे, रिवर बैंक पे मिला था, फटीक को मिले थे, वो आए, वो घर पे. It was the man Fatik had met in the morning. Morning में जिसने फटीक से पूछा था चक्रवर्ती इसका घर कहाँ है. As soon as his mother saw the stranger, her anger changed to surprise. अब हाँ तो फटीक की मदर बहुत गुस्से में थी, फटीक को मार रही थी. तो जैसे ही उन्होंने उस ग्रे हेयर मैन को देखा तो उनका जो गुस्सा था वो सरप्राइज में बदल गया. उनको देख के बहुत आश्चर्यचकित हुए. It was her brother Vishambar. अब वो कौन थे? फटीक की मदर के ब्रदर थे. She bowed to touch his feet. The next few days were full of rejoicing. अब उन्होंने, उसकी मदर ने उनके फीट टच किए, पैर छुए और कुछ दिन बहुत अच्छे गुजरे. The brother asked after the education of the two boys. Now, उसके ब्रदर ने पूछा, उसकी मदर के ब्रदर ने, कि इन दोनों बॉयज के एजुकेशन के बाद क्या. He was told by his sister that Fatik was a perpetual nuisance. Perpetual nuisance means जो बार बार misbehave करते हैं, जो सुनता नहीं है, जो disobey करते हैं, जो misbehavior करते हैं बार बार, उनको perpetual बोला है. He was lazy, disobedient and wild. अब फटीक की मदर ने फटीक के बारे में ये सब बताया. But Makan was a good as gold, as quiet as a lamb, and very fond of reading. अब माखन के बारे में मदर ने क्या बोला कि वो बहुत शांत बच्चा है, बहुत अच्छा बच्चा है और उसको पढ़ना बहुत अच्छा लगता है. Vishwambar kindly offered to take Fatik off his sister's hand and educate him with his own children in Calcutta. Now Vishwambar said कि मैं फटीक को अपने साथ ले जाना चाहता हूँ, मेरे बच्चों के साथ मैं फटीक का एजुकेशन करूँ. The widowed mother readily agreed. Widowed mother means फटीक के फादर नहीं थे, तो उन्होंने अग्री कर लिया. It was an immense relief to the mother to get rid of Fatik, though she was somewhat distressed to see his extreme eagerness to get away. Now, अब मदर को लगा कि चलो अब ये जो ये न्यूसेंस करता है यहाँ पे रोज रोज का, वो बंद हो जाएगा, यहाँ अब ये शैतानियां नहीं करेगा. When they reached Calcutta, Fatik made the acquaintance of his aunt for the first time. अब जब वो कलकत्ता पहुंचे तो वहां पे फटीक ने पहली बार अपनी आंट को देखा. She was by no means pleased with this unnecessary addition to her family. वो फटीक को देख के बिल्कुल भी खुश नहीं हुई. She found her own 3 boys quiet enough to manage. उनके अपने 3 boys थे और उसके साथ एक फटीक भी आ गया था, तो he was not at all happy for that. And to bring a village lad of 14 into their midst was terribly upsetting. अब इस चीज ने उनको बहुत अपसेट किया कि एक 14 ईयर का बॉय और साथ में लेके आ गए. It was anguish to Fatik to be the unwelcomed guest in his aunt's house, despised and slighted on every occasion. Now, Fatik was also not very happy because उसका कोई अच्छा वेलकम नहीं हुआ घर. आंट ने तो बिल्कुल भी वेलकम नहीं. He longed to go back his village. वो अपने घर वापस जाना चाहता. He remembered the glorious meadow where he used to fly his kite all day long, the broad river banks where he would wander about singing and shouting when he wanted, the narrow brook where he could dive and swim as he liked. अब उसे अपने घर की याद आने लगी, अपने विलेज की याद आने लगी, जहाँ की वो दिन रात खेलता था, पतंग उड़ाता था और ब्रॉड रिवर बैंक्स थे वहाँ पे, वहाँ चिल्लाता था, खेलता था एंड जो नैरो ब्रुक्स वहाँ पे डाइव लगाता था. He remembered very badly his village. He thought of his band of companions over whom he was a despot. Above all, the memory of his tyrant mother occupied him day and night. Now उसको अपने दोस्त भी याद आने लगे जो वहाँ छूट गए थे ना, लेकिन उसकी मदर भी उसको याद की, कैसे मदर उसके ऊपर हमेशा गुस्सा रहती. In school, Fatik was the most unresponsive boy. He gasped and remained silent when the teacher asked him a question. अब स्कूल में भी फटिक कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं देता था, वो साइलेंट बैठा रहता था जब टीचर कुछ पूछती थी. When other boys were out at play, he stood wistfully by the window. जब बाकी सब बच्चे बाहर खेलने जाते थे स्कूल में, तो वो चुपचाप विंडो के पास खड़ा है. One day he summoned all his courage and asked, "Uncle, when can I go home?" तो एक दिन उसने बहुत साहस जुटा के अपने अंकल के पास गया वो और उनसे पूछा कि अंकल मैं घर कब जा सकता हूँ. His uncle answered, "Wait till the holidays in November." नवंबर में जब हॉलीडेज होंगे तब जाएंगे. That was indeed a long wait. Fatik lost his lesson book soon. Day after day, the teacher would cane him mercilessly. At last, he went to his aunt and told her that he had lost his book. अब एक दिन उसने लेसन बुक भी खो दी अपनी, और डेली उसकी टीचर उसको मारती भी थी इस वजह से, क्योंकि उसने अपनी बुक खो दी थी, लेसन बुक. तो एक दिन वो जाके उसने अपनी आंट से बोला कि उसने अपनी लेसन बुक खो दी. His aunt contemptuously shouted, "You clumsy country lout! How can I afford, with all my family, to buy you new books 5 times a month?" आंट जो थी वो बहुत चिल्लाई कि मैं बाकी 3 बच्चों के साथ तुम्हारे लिए कैसे बार-बार मैं नया बुक खरीद सकती हूँ. That day, on his way back from school, Fatik had a headache with a fit of shivering. एक दिन घर वापस आते समय, जब स्कूल से वो घर वापस आ रहा था, तो फटिक को हेडेक हुआ और फिर शिवरिंग भी हुई. He felt he was going to have an attack of malaria fever. Malaria, you have shivering and then you have fever. He was afraid that he would be a nuisance to his aunt. अब उसको लगा कि अब वो अगर बीमार पड़ गया तो उसकी आंट तो उसकी बिल्कुल भी देखभाल नहीं करेगी, वो एक न्यूसेंस बन जाएगा अपनी आंट के लिए. Later that day, Fatik was nowhere to be seen. उस दिन वहाँ फटिक को किसी ने नहीं देखा, वो कहीं दिखाई नहीं दिया. The rain had been pouring in torrents. At last, Vishambar sought the help of the police. जब फटिक नहीं मिला पूरे दिन, तब विशंबर पुलिस के पास गए उनकी मदद की पुलिस की. फटिक को ढूंढने. At the end of the day, a police van stopped at the door before the house. It was still raining when 2 constables brought out Fatik in their arms. He was wet through, muddy all over his face, and eyes flushed red with fever, and his limbs all trembling. अब by the end of the day, जैसे दिन खत्म हुआ, तो एक पुलिस वैन आके विशंबर के घर के सामने रुकी और 2 कांस्टेबल निकले, फटिक को गोद में उठा के अंदर लाए. पूरा उसका फेस मड में था, वो गीला था और उसकी आईज फीवर से रेड थी, and he was shivering, trembling. Vishambar carried him inside his arms. When his wife saw him, she exclaimed, "What a heap of trouble this boy has given us. Hadn't you better send him home?" अब विशंबर ने उसको गोद में लिया और अंदर लाए, लेकिन उसकी वाइफ ने, विशंबर की वाइफ ने क्या कहा? फटिक की आंट बोली कि ये क्या एक ट्रबल घर पे लेके आए हो, क्या ये अच्छा नहीं होता कि हम इसे घर वापस भेज देते? Fatik heard her words and sobbed out loud. "Uncle, I was going home, but they dragged me back again." अब फटिक ने जब आंट की बात सुनी तो वो रोने लगा और बोला, "अंकल, मैं घर ही जा रहा था वापस, लेकिन ये मुझे खींच के वापस ले आए." The fever rose very high and the boy was delirious. Vishambar brought in a doctor. Fatik opened his eyes, flushed with fever, and looked up at the ceiling and said vacantly, Uncle, have the holidays come yet? May I go home now? अब फीवर और ज़्यादा हो गया और तेज़ फीवर चढ़ गया उसे और उसने तब बिशंबर डॉक्टर लेके आए घर पे और उसने जब आइस खोली अपनी फटिक में तो उस फीवर में फ्लश थी, बिल्कुल आइज रेड हो रही थी और उसने सीलिंग की तरफ देखते हुए अपने अंकल से बोला, अंकल क्या छुट्टियां अभी नहीं आई हैं? मुझे घर जाना है. मे आई गो होम? Bishamber wiped the tears from his eyes and sat by him through the night. अब बिशंबर ने उसकी आंखों से आंसू पोंछे और पूरी रात उसके पास बैठे रहे. The next day, when Fatik became conscious for a short while, he turned his eyes about the room as if expecting to see someone. अब जब नेक्स्ट डे उसको थोड़ा सा होश आया, उसने अपनी थोड़ी देर के लिए आंखें खोली तो उसने पूरे रूम में चारों तरफ देखा. वो किसी को एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा था. Disappointed, he turned his face to the wall with a deep sigh. उसे कोई दिखाई नहीं दिया और उसने अपना फेस वॉल की तरफ टर्न कर दिया. Bishamber knew his thoughts and whispered, Fatik, I have sent for your mother. The doctor said in a troubled voice that the boy's condition was very critical. अब बिशंबर को पता था कि वो किसे ढूंढ रहा है, तो उसने धीरे से फटिक के कान में बोला कि मैंने तुम्हारी माँ को बुलाने के लिए भेजा है. और डॉक्टर ने क्या बोला कि इस बच्चे की हालत बहुत नाजुक है, ही इज वेरी क्रिटिकल, इसकी हालत ठीक नहीं है. Fatik began to cry out, by the mark 3 phantoms, by the mark 4 phantoms, by the mark. He had heard the sailor on the steamer calling out the mark on the plumb line. Now children, what do you mean by plumb? It is a plumb line. Now he was himself plumbing an unfathomable sea. जैसे सी में sailors they call out by the mark 3 fathoms, by the mark 4 fathoms. तो ऐसे ही वो खुद एक स्टीमर, उसको लग रहा था कि वो सेलर बन गया है on the steamer calling out the mark. Later in the day, Fatik's mother came and seeing him cried, Fatik, my darling, my darling. Fatik slowly turned his head and said, Mother, the holidays have come. And this story has been written by Rabindranath Tagore. So children, see how when a child is sent away from the home, how a child misses the home and the parents, his companions, his friends, and many things he or she misses. So Fatik was sent out from his house and he ended up in such a bad condition. Fine children, so I hope you have understood and how this poor boy, he was just because of his brothers telling a lie. His brother told a lie that he has been beating, Fatik has beaten him. His mother got angry and how his uncle took him to his house and there also his aunt didn't care for him and he ended up in such a bad situation. Okay children, so in a nutshell, live in peace. We should always live in peace. Respect the order of your parents. Yes, this was the mistake of Fatik also, because every time he used to create a nuisance, he used to disobey, he used to misbehave, and that was the reason his mother sent him with his uncle. So that for a few days he lived somewhere else, he learned something, but there the situations were something different. Okay? So always respect and obey your elders and parents too. Now children, testing time. Let's start. Who was the stranger? Fatik's father, Fatik's uncle, Fatik's friend, Fatik's neighbor. He was Fatik's uncle. Fatik remained dashed in the class. Silent, violent, naughty or happy. Fatik remained silent in the class. Fatik was infected with dash fever, jaundice, malaria, viral yellow. He was infected with malaria fever. In spite of having fever, Fatik was going to his village, his school, his friend's home, his uncle's house. He was going back to his village. Right? So, children, now we start with the fill in the blanks. There was a dash log lying on the muddy bank of the river. So, it was a very heavy log. So, we write here heavy. Dash heard the order and made it a point of honor to stick on. Who sticked on to the log? Makhan. Makhan heard the order. It was at this critical dash that the grey-haired stranger arrived. It was at this critical juncture. Juncture means point of time. She bowed to touch his feet. She bowed down to touch his feet. Dash wiped the tears from his eyes and sat by him through the night. Who wiped the tears from Fatik's eyes? Bishambar. Was his uncle Bishambar. Fine? Now, let's move ahead. Write T for true and F for false statements. An old idea for mischief got into Fatik's head. Yes, this is very true. It was an idea of mischief only to move the log from its place. So this is true. Fatik could not bear this injustice any longer. Which injustice? Of telling, Makhan was telling the lie. So, yes, this is true. Makhan only moved to a more comfortable position. Yes, true. In school, Fatik was the most unresponsive boy. Yes, this is also true. That was indeed a long wait for Fatik. Yes, till November it was a very long wait. Fatik's mother brought in a doctor. Did Fatik's mother brought in a doctor? No. Fatik's uncle brought in a doctor. So this is a false statement. Right? F here. Okay, children? So, children, now some question answers. Answer the following questions. Why did Fatik's mother describe him as a perpetual nuisance? What does perpetual means? As I told you, perpetual means again and again, repeating the same thing again and again. Fatik's mother described him as a perpetual nuisance because Fatik every time misbehaved. He never obeyed his elders. He never listened to his parents. He never listened to his mother. And whatever naughty things he could do, he would every time carry on with that. That's why his mother told him as a perpetual nuisance. Okay, children. Now the next question. Find two examples of similes in the story and explain them in your own words. Simile means comparison of two things, comparing one thing to the other. Okay, the meanings are different, but the comparison is done between the two things. The first simile used is like a young philosopher. So, children, the first simile is used like a young philosopher, and it is used for Makhan. The second one is as quiet as a lamb. एक लैम्प को देखा है कितना शांत रहता है. तो as quiet as a lamb was used for Makhan. Makhan के लिए बोला गया. उसकी मदर ने बोला था that he is a very good boy. It is used for someone very good who obeys every time, who obeys their elders, who never misbehaves. So उसका comparison दिया था as quiet as a lamb. उसको कहा तो Makhan के लिए use किया गया. What did Fatik remember about his village? Fatik को अपने village की क्या-क्या चीजें याद आई? Fatik remembered about the river bank of his village and his companions with whom he used to play and that the place where he used to dive with his friends, and the cool river and that broad river where he used to just play on the river bank. He remembered all those things of his village. How did Fatik's teacher and his aunt treat him when he lost his lesson? When Fatik lost his lesson book, daily his teacher used to beat him very cruelly for losing that lesson book, for not bringing the lesson book. And when he told this to his aunt that he had lost his lesson book, she angrily shouted on him, saying that how can I afford purchasing your lesson books again and again if you lose them again? So, in this way, the Fatik's teacher and aunt behaved with him. Now, children, the last question: explain the two meanings of the word plum as used in the story. So, the word plum means to mark the depth of the water. As Fatik had heard the sailor shouting when the plumbing in the sea, he plumps in the sea when he is sailing in the sea, and he is marking the depth of the water. In that way, Fatik also had realized that now he himself is plumbing on the sea. Plumbing means the depth, the way he is not well. He was not well, and he was not sure what would be his end, because he was very critical at that time when he missed his home. So, these are the meanings of the word plum used in the story here. So, children, this was all in this chapter, and I hope you have understood that always behave properly and always respect your elders too. Okay, this was the moral of this story. So, the conditions, like Fatik was being punished by sending away from the home, and how he turned up very badly. So, these conditions should not occur, children. You should always be well behaved and live happily with your family, with your friends, with your brothers and sisters, and not do any mischief. Mischiefs are to be done, but not in that way that daily and daily you are doing some naughty things which are bothering others. दूसरों को bother नहीं करना चाहिए, आपकी शैतानियों से शैतानियां नहीं करनी चाहिए. You should play healthy things, play healthy games. Don't play anything like which hurts others, or which makes which bothers your parents too. Okay, so always be a good child. हमेशा अच्छे बच्चे बन के रहिए, and stay excited for the clamp of the next video. I'll be back soon with something new. Till then, bye.